Welcome to the Supernal Magazine interview series, and on our show today we have Julian Silburn from Sound Alchemy over in Western Australia. Welcome to our video series.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, and I'm really excited to see where this goes.
Yeah, well, it's, we're talking sound healing and we're talking different instruments, and the instruments you play I absolutely adore. I just love them. And so what I want to do is give our viewers and readers a bit of a chance to have a look at some of your skills, and we'll do that. We'll capture some of you playing music soon. But just as interested in the journey into sound healing and energy work, because really that's what your main bent is. I know you teach people, and I know you connected with the Aboriginal people. I think there's a good story there. So rather than just jump into that aspect of the healing component, tell us a little bit about you and your journey, Julian, because that's really important.
Yeah. So yeah, I did quite a lot of travel as a young guy, exploring, the world, and I kind of reached the end of a period of time where it was just all about partying and being social and surfing, and I actually just reached a bit of a point where I think I just had exhausted, that aspect of myself, and realized it was really not something I wanted to continue with for the long term. And I wanted to first regain my health, because I'd become quite unwell from, that kind of lifestyle. And I actually was in a period of quite bad depression. I'd come back from an overseas journey, and I had quite a rough time over there, and came back, and I was like, I really got to get my health back. And I managed to do that by doing a lot of cleansing and finding balance again in my life, and looking at my life and looking at the kind of people that were in my life. And it was a big sort of cleansing of things at that time, and I'd changed. I'd grown a lot as a person, and I really wanted to discover more of myself as a spiritual being, not just someone that had, been conditioned and, lived a certain life, to a certain point, but then realized that it felt really limited, and I needed to unravel that, or sort of bring to the light another aspect of myself that I started to journey with, because I was very interested in Tibetan Buddhism, Aboriginal culture, and when I come back from that trip, I was quite disillusioned, and it was actually through yoga. I started getting to yoga and meditation, and as I started to empty out all that I thought I was as a person, I was very sort of confident in myself, but I realized a lot of that confidence was just on a very shallow, superficial level. And when I got unwell, it made me think, I don't, I don't. I think growing up, you sort of like, everyone wants you to be clear on the direction you want to go, and as a young person, you have to make some strong decisions about your future. And I think at that time, I wanted to pursue something that I was passionate about, which was filmmaking. And I went to Portugal and Spain to to get a catalogue of my work together. And during that time, I just I was interested in shamanism. I've been reading Carlos Castaneda's work, and I think the more deeply I got into spiritual ideas of the world, the less interesting my life. It just sort of like it's just fell apart, like who I thought I was. It really literally just dismantled itself into a big heap, and I just didn't recognize myself anymore because I was growing in my spiritual understanding of the world. And that's when I started, through yoga and through cleansing on a dietary level and through lifestyle and social, discernment about who was going to be right for my energy and honoring myself. As I cleansed and purified myself, I started to have these dreams, and they seemed out of nowhere because um, it was just like this one particular dream, and I share this dream because it's an important one. Is that I had a dream where there were an Aboriginal family, and they were living beside a river, and they were sheltered in like a big hollowed out tree, and one of the family members slid this long didgeridoo down towards me and started playing the didge. And he put it down, and then I picked up the other end and started playing. And then that young man came, and he left the family group and walked right up to me, took me by the hand, and led me into the river. And we just started swimming together, deeper and deeper and deeper. And I came out of that dream just feeling just like something really sacred had happened to me, and it really was a turning point for me in my life, because I knew that there was something really profound and deep about this, and I didn't understand where it would lead me exactly, but I knew that I'd been called on some level.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's very prophetic in the way you're talking, and it seems to be the start of a journey that a lot of people have when they're going into an awakening of some sort, and each one's different, obviously. Um, just as a quick question on the side of that, how old were you when that journey started?
I was I was I just turned 19 basically. And yeah, and it was just the time prior to that. It was just a lot of social time, drug taking, all of that stuff. And then at a certain point, it was just like I realized that that just wasn't good for me anymore. Like it was a really strong spiritual awakening to the fact that I can't do that to myself anymore. That's almost harming myself, because as I grew in understanding on a spiritual level, I realized that that was actually preventing me developing
Mm-hmm.
more on the spiritual path. Um, and I suppose I delineate drug taking to medicines and other things that can be part of the spiritual journey, but plant medicines, things like that. But I think the unceremonial use of substances without awareness and without ceremony can, you know, um, can, lead you down the wrong path, I suppose, and I felt like that had happened to me. And this, way of cleansing and reconnecting to things that had deep value and meaning to me was super important. And I suppose that's when the didgeridoo journey started for me, and I started to seek out a teacher. Um, and I'd seen some incredible Aboriginal players who used to perform at a local market down in Fremantle, Derek Nanup and Heath Bergenson, and they were just incredible players, and they had this energy that I think my spirit recognized as something very special and sacred, and something that for a while I was just happy to just watch these guys play. And it was only after several years later that I found myself asking them, how do you even start to play the didgeridoo? You know, it seems so out of reach. But I said, go and see my friend. It was just Heath at the time. Go and see my friend Derek. Um, but because of my understanding of shamanism, I realized that I needed to prepare myself energetically for that connection. And I started, it was very intuitive, actually. I mean, it was based on some of the understandings I'd read in Carlos Castaneda's books about power places and connecting to the earth and connecting to the land and connecting to sacred, ancestral energies. And those dreams continued. I actually had one dream after the next, and it felt my spirit was sort of like living in this dreamtime energy,
Mm.
um, and just feeling the presence of these Indigenous people with me. And it actually just started to affect the way I, I did things in the world. And I sort of had this capacity to sort of like walk the land, understanding that this was a different time now, and there were cars and all the sort of business of the world going on around me. But I had to just kind of like almost put blinkers on and just follow my heart and my intuition and my guidance about the places in nature that I needed to visit, connect with, prepare myself, and then make this man to start my journey of learning how to actually play the instrument. But um, this is something I feel like is really important for people to connect with the earth and the land in their own way. And I think we
Mhm.
all have our own way of feeling that sacred connection to the earth.
Yep, I agree with you. I think that's a really important point for people to understand, that it doesn't matter where you are on your journey if you're connected. If you're connected into the earth and you're connected with your intuition and how you feel, you're not going to go too far wrong. It might not be easy, but you're not going to go too far wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was sort of later on. I started traveling with the didgeridoo. I went to Hawaii. Actually, prior to that, I met an Aboriginal elder down in the southwest of Western Australia called Maxine Fumagalli. She was married to an Italian man, but she's an Indigenous woman, Noongar woman. Um, and the first thing she said to me when I played a didgeridoo in her shop was, "That's not how you play the didgeridoo." And I was used to people saying, "Wow, you play so well, da da da," and I think it had gone to my head a bit. And she was just the great leveler. She just boomed across the room. "That's not how you play the didge." I was like, "Well, I better listen," you know.
Yeah.
And and I think some people kind of got a bit scared off by her manner because she was very direct. But I think I was ready for that, and
Mm.
I appreciated her perspective on everything. But yeah, she really explained that everything that you play on the didgeridoo should have a reason, a purpose, a meaning, a visualization.
Yep.
Still didn't quite get what she was meaning, and she goes, "I'll explain to you what I mean." And she picked up her guitar and she started singing about the land, about the valleys and the hills and the bush. And then she nodded to me, "Okay, now start playing the didgeridoo." So I started playing. And then she spoke about the kangaroos jumping, and I started making those sounds, and the dingoes and the different birds. And what she was singing about, came to life, like seriously came to life. It suddenly animated my awareness like I was there, you
Yep.
know, nature, having that direct experience, almost like an astral body experience of, seeing something and experiencing something that I'd never experienced while playing the didgeridoo in that way. And I really got the point. And and then she explained that, in her opinion, the real purpose for the didgeridoo was for healing. And I had no idea. I knew it was sacred, I knew it was special, but I had no idea that the didgeridoo was used for healing. And she explained how that worked and that how we have a resonance and the didgeridoo has a resonance. And when those two resonances speak to each other, the didgeridoo player, the facilitator, gets biofeedback from the person's energy field, their vibration, their energy field, their spirit, and it informs you as a practitioner about what's going on for that person.
Hmm.
Sometimes people, and you can feel it, like you can you can sense where energy is flowing, where energy isn't flowing, whether that person is, open or not open to this experience. And it really depends where the person's at. And you really have to honor each person where they are at the time. Mm.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Understanding that with sound healing and energy work, that you can't go in there to change the person. You can go in there and help them to help themselves, on a cellular level, coming back. So yeah, it's a really important point. I also love the visual of, learning to play where you're actually visualizing the animals and the sounds and the landscape, because that really is important in that space. So your journey has taken you from quite a young age, uh, getting to the end of one existence and then moving into another. Uh, and then that's just sort of morphed into a whole range of then working with sound to generate energetic healing within the person. So it's not just the didge that you're moved into. That you moved into crystal bowls and you moved into gongs and you've moved into other instruments as well. Do you find that they all resonate to a different person when they come to see you or when you're playing? How does that work for you?
Yeah, yeah. I kind of see them like my instruments as my family, and that they've all got different personalities and different energies that they bring. And some people will say, that, the rain sticks, that was my favorite thing. There will be something that each person will connect with and really identify quite specifically, actually, that the didgeridoo did it for me, or the drum did it for me, or the crystal balls, or the gong was it, you know? So sometimes people will have a particular experience and it'll be different every single time. You would know that.
Yep.
Every single time someone will have a different experience. Even with the same sort of instruments, something will call them, something will connect with them. So you never know what it's going to be for people. And it's the same for me when I'm a recipient of sound healing, and I've been lucky enough to experience a lot of sound healing myself. Um, so sometimes, yeah, I mean, as someone receiving it, I had to. It's an art form in itself of how to receive sound healing, I think.
I, that's a valid point, definitely.
And I think it took me a while because a lot of my time, and I just feel like this is good to share because for a lot of my time I was like, oh, I want to see things, I want to have an astral body experience, I want to have all this sort of juicy stuff. And as long as you want the stuff, it's kind of holding it back.
Yep.
When you just let go and you don't have an expectation and you're just present to what is, and you kind of get yourself out of the way, and you don't over try and make things happen. That's when stuff happens. It's the same with meditation, isn't it?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. I think going back at that point, I think the problem when you're doing energy work around people that do energy work themselves, because they want to get involved in what the healing is, or the energy is, or the experience is, instead of just relaxing and letting their body do what it needs to do. And so, yeah, it's very hard for a lot of people to do that.
Yeah. It does take practice. It does take practice.
Mm.
I think that what I want to share from that is what I found the most helpful was just be with the breath, just be present with every breath.
Mm-hmm.
Virtually all you have to do, and then the rest will take care of itself. If you're going to have an experience or a healing or a vision or something, it's going to be when you just are in presence.
Yep.
Very
Totally
simple.
agree. Totally agree. I think that's a really strong thing. And I know when I work with my clients, I'm saying to them, all I want you to do is just lie there and just breathe. Put some soft music on in the background, just so that if they sort of need to, it's there. And the whole point is just breathe and let it happen rather than just force it. So, yeah.
We can think that we're the ones that have to make it happen. I think that's what I sort of learned, was that you don't make things. You can have the intention, but then you have to let that intention go. You have to just surrender to the great mystery.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Really, it really is a valid point. So moving through then that space, the crystal Didge was born. Tell us a little bit how, because I hadn't actually, until I'd heard about you, I hadn't heard of a crystal Didge, and which it's over here in the East. Most people tend to play the wooden Didge. So just give us a bit of a rundown on how that crystal Didge came about.
Yeah, well, I'd seen a YouTube of someone playing a crystal Didge in America, and I sort of tried to make contact and see if they were selling them, and they weren't, and I did some more research, and I found that there were some people in Canada making them, and then later on, I think in Europe. But I looked at what was available, and I was considering buying one, but I had a situation happen. I had this beautiful crystal bowl, quite a big one, a 16-inch or an 18-inch, and I had it in the back of my car, and I went over a curb and it hit another bowl, and it broke this bowl. And I was really upset. And if you've ever broken a crystal bowl, you'll know the feeling.
Not a big one, thankfully, but yeah, it's heartbreaking.
It is, and that's where you realise how connected you are to these instruments. How they are like a being, a family member or a friend or something like that. And I'm a bit of an optimist, so I said to myself, how can I create a good thing out of something that's not so good? And I thought, well, I've always wanted to get a crystal didgeridoo. How about I design one and get one made? My perfect kind of didge. Basically, I lived up in the Northern Territory. I was invited to live and work up there back in '97, and had a wonderful time learning how to make traditional instruments. And I've made hundreds of instruments over the years. And so I knew that I had the skills and the understanding of how to dimensionally create something. And so I basically found a way of doing that and had my first one made. It was probably about 8 or 9 years ago now. And there was a few prototype issues to start with, but I got that sorted, and then started to create other ones, different sizes, different keys. And then I had some custom orders, which, would then had to really work it out how to get them made, in such a way that would get that exact key. And I've been very fortunate. The designs that I've made have worked out, and I thank the amount of time and understanding I have about the internal diameter of a didgeridoo, how to how to work out the dimensions. And in the last few years, I've had a quartz crystal didgeridoo made with 24 karat gold plating. And it wasn't to be flashy or, like some sort of bling statement. It's purely for the vibrational, um, benefit of having the gold mixed with the quartz to further facilitate the power of these instruments. And quartz does sound very different to a wooden didgeridoo. It sounds like a didgeridoo, but it's a different quality. It's a different resonance.
Yeah. Well, I think that resonance is what really all instruments offer, and that's what makes them so unique, doesn't it? Whether it's a flute or a bowl or a didge. We are going to, in the next video, get you to play some of these instruments. So for people that are listening, you'll be able to click onto the next link. So just as we're sort of getting towards the end of this little bit of chat, when you're doing sound energy healing work, what advice, apart from the fact that people should let go, how should people approach it? So if I was a beginner and I didn't know really what sound healing was, and I got told about you, and I rang you up and said, "Oh, hi, my name's Anthony and I would like to get a vibrational healing and I don't know why." Talk us through what you would talk them through.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would explain that, what Einstein and Tesla and all of these, very deep thinking scientists who weren't just scientists, they were quite spiritual as well. Um, vibration is everything. Vibration is in every single living thing, non-living thing. Everything is composed of vibration, including our human body. And many things affect our vibration: people, places, situations, big life events, relationships, exposure to trauma, exposure to noise pollution or environmental toxins. There's so many things that affect our energy field and affect our vibration, our many vibrations, because we are an orchestra of vibrations. So things can have an effect to deharmonize our optimal resonance. I call it the optimal resonance because when we start to come back to our divine blueprint, I suppose you'd call it, of being connected and in our full integrity and full power as a vibrational being, the microcosm of the macrocosm of source and of creation. That's when we really get our power and our strength really activated. So we can activate our vibration through our own voice, and we can activate it through receiving sound as a treatment. But for someone that would come along, I suppose I would just explain that all these sounds have their own vibration that will connect to all the vibrations that are within you. And when you vibrate one resonant body with another, it causes what science calls entrainment or resonance.
Mm-hmm.
It brings that vibration back into its optimal vibrational resonance. So, yeah, in a nutshell, it's a tune-up. It's a vibrational tune-up. And like like a keyboard, a piano needs tuning, and a harp needs tuning, and a guitar needs tuning. We actually all need a bit of a tune-up, whether we can activate that ourselves through our own voice or through dance, or there's so many, exercise or connection with nature.
Mm.
Sound healing is a very helpful modality. It's not the only
Absolutely.
modality out there, but it is very powerful for bringing us back into resonance, and it's liberating. It can shed emotional residues. It can liberate you from psychological, grievances, suffering, and bring you back into that sense of I'm back. I'm feeling connected. I feel I don't feel out of harmony or out of balance.
Yeah.
That's that's a great gift. It's liberating.
Yeah, I think it's, the way you explain it's really, really good because I often use the analogy of the motor vehicle for people, and that, they're putting fuel in, that's their energy into their body. And if you put rubbish fuel in, you're not going to get peak performance out. And alternatively, years of rubbish fuel gets a build-up of rubbish in the tank, which goes into the motor, which that's your running system. So you take it to a good mechanic and someone that knows what they're doing. They're going to flush it out. They're going to tune it. They're going to get you moving. And then you go back to putting good fuel in, and hopefully the result's good. And so it works along a similar sort of vein, because most people can sort of understand that without going into too much, when it comes to it. Well, look, we will wrap this bit up, part of the interview up, by saying the best way people can get to you is via your soundalchemy.com.au webpage.
Yeah, just in the contacts. They can send an email, or message me on Facebook under Sound, through the Sound Alchemy page.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's.
And you also sell instruments for people, so they can jump onto your second page as well.
Yeah, that's right. So I've got the crystalyudaki.com page, and that's showing some of the crystal Yudakis, Didgeridoo, the original name for Didgeridoos, Yudaki in Yolnu.
Yep.
So yeah, and I've got some new models that haven't been uploaded onto the website yet, but I can send photos and things to people that are interested.
Excellent, excellent. Well, look, Julian, thanks for sharing a little bit of your journey. People will be able to hear your sounds in a minute, and they'll be able to go to your web pages and look at some of the video clips you've got. There's so many other special stories that I know we haven't really touched on, so we might have to get you back at another stage to have a bit more of a chat. But thank you very much, and we appreciate your time and your effort. And until then, the old adage, keep rocking. You should be. Yeah. So, thank you very much.
So welcome. Thanks for having me.